eyes and squinted at the screen. It was Rico, my so-called manager. "You're in. White party tomorrow night. You made it." I stared at the message, my stomach doing flips. The White Party, the stuff of legend, hosted by Diddy himself. It was more than a party. It was a rite of passage. Careers were made there. Lives changed overnight. But it wasn't just about showing up. It was about proving you belonged. And proving yourself came with a price. I sat up, my hands clammy. Part of me wanted to ignore the text, pretend I never saw it. But another part, the hungry part, knew this was the opportunity I couldn't miss. I glanced at the clock again. 2:15 a.m. Sleep wasn't happening tonight. A week ago, I was just another SoundCloud rapper trying to make it big. Then my song went viral. TikTok had eaten it up. People were making dance trends. Memes, even challenges with the hook. The chorus was sticky, the kind of thing that burrowed into your brain and stayed there. But one viral hit didn't mean anything in the long run. Everyone was already asking, what's next? The pressure was crushing. Rico made sure I felt it every time he looked at me with that sly grin of his, like he knew I'd either rise or crumble under it. The next morning, Rico called me into his office. It wasn't much, just a room in the back of a recording studio he'd borrowed from a friend. He leaned back in his chair, a cheap cigar dangling from his fingers. "Big night tomorrow," he said, blowing smoke toward the ceiling. "Don't embarrass me." I nodded, trying to look confident. But inside I was anything but. The stories about the White Party buzzed in my mind. Whispers of strange rituals, shady deals, sacrifices, things no one would admit to in daylight. Rico waved his cigar at me. "You think this is just a party?" "Nah, man. This is the big leagues. They're watching you. You gotta deliver." I swallowed hard. "What exactly am I delivering?" He smirked. "Yourself." The party was at a mansion in the Hamptons. I'd never seen anything like it. White marble stairs spiraled up to a balcony that seemed to touch the sky. Chandeliers sparkled like frozen stars. Even the air smelled expensive. A mix of fresh-cut roses and something I couldn't place. Something metallic hidden beneath it all. Everything was white. White curtains billowed from the ceiling. White roses filled vases taller than me. Even the champagne flutes were frosted white, catching the light and throwing it back like prisms. Rico handed me a suit before we left the city. "Custom tailored," he said, patting the lapels like he was proud of himself. It cost more than I'd made in my entire life. But when I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. As we entered the party, Rico shoved a girl toward me. She was stunning. Sharp cheekbones, flawless skin, and eyes that looked like they could cut through steel. But there was something off about her. Something hollow. "She's your ticket," Rico whispered, leaning in close. His breath smelled like whiskey. "Prove you belong." I frowned. "What does that mean?" He didn't answer. Instead, he slipped a small vial into my hand. The glass was cool against my skin, the liquid inside swirling like it was alive. "When the time comes, you'll know," he said, his tone low. "Don't think. Just act." My fingers tightened around the vial as we moved through the crowd. The room buzzed with energy. Celebrities I'd only ever seen on screens were everywhere. Laughing, drinking, watching. At the center of it all sat Diddy, perched on what looked like a throne. He was surrounded by an entourage, his expression unreadable. Rico nudged me forward. The girl clung to my arm like we were old flames. "You brought the new kid?" someone said. Another voice chuckled. "Let's see if he's got what it takes." The bass from the music thumped in my chest. Someone handed me a glass of champagne, and I downed it without thinking. My fingers still gripped the vial in my pocket. It felt heavy, like a weight pulling me deeper into something I didn't understand. The girl turned to me, her voice barely a whisper. "You don't have to do this." Her words sent a chill down my spine. Before I could respond, Rico's voice cut through the noise. "Do it." Time slowed. The room blurred around me, the faces of the crowd sharpening into piercing stares. My heart raced as I pulled the vial from my pocket. My hands trembled, the glass catching the light and sparkling like a star. The girl's lips quivered. "Please," she mouthed. Rico's voice echoed in my head. "You gotta prove you belong." I froze. The moment stretched just long enough for someone to laugh. A sharp, cruel sound that cut through the tension like a knife. My chest tightened, and I realized this wasn't just a test. This was a moment that would define me. The girl brushed her hand against mine. She wasn't pleading anymore. She was resigned. And that's what broke me. In one motion, I dropped the vial. It hit the marble floor and shattered, the liquid spreading into a crimson pool. The laughter stopped. Gasps rippled through the crowd. All eyes turned to Diddy. He stood slowly, his movements deliberate. My throat tightened as he stepped toward me, his expression unreadable. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm. "You've got guts, kid." He clapped me on the shoulder, his grip firm. "Let's see what you can do with that." The party roared back to life around me, but I was no longer part of it. I slipped out the back, the girl following close behind. Neither of us spoke as we stepped into the cool night air. It hit me like a slap, sharp and sobering. For the first time that night, I felt free. The next morning, my song hit 1,000,000 streams. Rico didn't call, and I didn't call him either. I knew better. The white party wasn't about proving yourself to the industry. It was about proving yourself to yourself. And that's exactly what I'd done. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear the sound of that vial shattering against the marble, and I wondered, did I make the right choice? Or did I just delay the inevitable? When James Fox received the invitation to Diddy's white party, it was business as usual. For a star of his caliber, attending events like this was just another night of glitz, glamour, and networking. The legendary soiree in the Hamptons was more than just a party. It was a symbol of status, a place where the most powerful people in entertainment rubbed elbows and whispered secrets no one else was supposed to hear. James didn't expect this party to be any different from the others he'd attended over the years. But that night would prove unforgettable for all the wrong reasons. The evening was in full swing when James arrived, dressed to perfection in a tailored white suit that shimmered under the estate's lights. The mansion was alive with music and laughter, the air thick with champagne and cigar smoke. Everyone who was anyone was there, effortlessly beautiful, wrapped in an aura of untouchable confidence. James floated through the crowd with ease, cracking jokes, flashing his signature smile, and drawing laughter wherever he went. But as the hours wore on, he found himself wanting a break from the noise. He wandered deeper into the estate, the muffled bass of the music fading as he entered a quieter wing of the mansion. The hallway was eerily silent, the air colder than it should have been. James glanced over his shoulder, a strange sensation crawling up his spine like he was being watched. That's when he noticed a door slightly ajar at the end of the hallway. From inside came faint murmurs, low voices, and an unsettling rhythmic sound. Against his better judgment, James approached. His footsteps were silent on the plush carpet. Peering through the crack in the door, his breath caught in his throat. Inside, Diddy sat at the center of a circle, surrounded by a group of men, powerful figures James recognized instantly. These were titans of the music industry, men whose influence had shaped the careers of countless artists. But what they were doing defied reason. The men were engaged in something grotesque, their actions so depraved that James' mind struggled to process what he was seeing. Diddy's expression was calm, almost serene, as if this horrific spectacle were the most natural thing in the world. James stepped back, his stomach twisting in revulsion. He hadn't made a sound, but somehow Diddy's head snapped toward the door. His eyes locked onto James. "James Fox," Diddy called, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade. Panic surged through him. James bolted, his heart pounding as he raced back down the hallway, his footsteps echoing in the emptiness. The mansion became a maze, corridors twisting and turning as he desperately tried to find his way back to the party. "James!" Diddy's voice rang out again, closer now, heavy with anger and authority. "Where are you going?" James didn't stop. He pushed through a side door and burst out onto the estate, onto the sprawling lawn, the cool night air hitting his face like a slap. He kept running, desperate to put as much distance between himself and that room as possible. But Diddy caught up to him. "James, stop." Diddy's voice was calm now, almost soothing, like someone trying to placate a frightened animal. James turned, breathing hard. Diddy approached slowly, his white suit immaculate, his face unreadable. "You didn't see anything," Diddy said, his tone soft but firm. "Understand?" James didn't respond. His mind raced, torn between fear and disbelief. Diddy stepped closer. "Look, James, you're a smart guy. You know how this world works. There are things we do to maintain the life we have, things no one talks about." James' mouth went dry. He wanted to scream, to demand answers, but the words wouldn't come. Diddy smiled faintly, his expression chillingly calm. "You stay quiet and this all stays behind you. You talk and, well, let's just say people don't like loose ends." James nodded numbly, his instincts screaming that arguing would only make things worse. Diddy clapped him on the shoulder, his grip unnervingly firm. "That's my guy," Diddy said. His voice light again, as if they were back at the party. "Now let's get you another drink." James didn't stay. He left the party without saying goodbye. The images from that room burned into his mind for years. He kept the memory locked away, telling himself it was a bad dream, a figment of his imagination, fueled by too much champagne. but deep down he knew the truth. James decided to return to stand-up comedy. It was supposed to be a fresh start, a chance to reconnect with the joy of making people laugh. While brainstorming material, the memory of the white party resurfaced. He crafted a joke about Hollywood's darkest corners, framing it as a wild exaggeration. The crowd loved it. The joke landed perfectly, and James felt a rush of pride. But that night as he drove home, a car followed him. 2 weeks later, James fell mysteriously ill. The media called it a medical complication, but those closest to him knew something was off. He'd been healthy, full of energy, excited about new projects. The sudden collapse didn't make sense. James slipped into a coma, his condition shrouded in secrecy. His family kept quiet, avoiding questions about what might have caused it. Behind the scenes, strange calls began to come in, anonymous voices warning them to keep James' stories to themselves. Months later, James woke up. The world erupted with relief. But as his family gathered around him, they noticed something strange. James' eyes were distant. His face was pale. His lips moved, forming a single word. Diddy. The call came late, just as I was locking up the diner. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and I answered without thinking. Yo, is this Cam? A deep, confident voice asked. Yeah, I replied cautiously. Who's asking? This is David from Fifth Avenue Talent. Diddy saw one of your videos. He's interested. I froze. Diddy the Diddy. He's throwing one of his white parties this weekend. The voice continued. Pack your bags. Before I could finish the question, her eyes rolled back. She slipped past me into the crowd, swallowed by the music and flashing lights as if she'd never been there at all. That's when the panic hit. I tried to steady myself, but my legs barely responded. The floor felt soft, unstable, like I was walking on water. My palms tingled where the baby oil still clung to my skin, the sensation crawling up my arms in slow, deliberate waves. I scanned the room for Dave. He was gone. The music shifted. Slower now, deeper, vibrating in my chest. A hand closed around my elbow, firm but gentle. Easy, Diddy said, appearing at my side as if summoned by my fear. You're just overwhelmed. I need some air, I muttered. Of course you do, he replied, smiling. Come with me. I tried to pull away, but my body betrayed me. He guided me toward the staircase, each step heavier than the last. The crowd parted without a word, their eyes blank, compliant. Upstairs, the noise faded into a dull hum. The hallway was lined with mirrors, too many of them. My reflection multiplied endlessly, each version of me looking more drained than the last. Diddy stopped in front of a set of double doors. This is where people become more than they were, he said softly. Where they leave doubt behind. I swallowed hard. I don't feel right. He chuckled. That's how you know it's working. The doors opened. Inside, the room glowed white, walls, floor, ceiling, so bright it hurt my eyes. At the center stood a long table. On it sat a sleek, glowing device and a small vial filled with swirling golden liquid. My breath caught. What is that? Diddy picked up the vial reverently. Your essence. Your light. The thing the world feeds on but never thanks you for. My stomach twisted. That's not possible. He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. Everything has a price, Cam. Fame, power, freedom. Tonight, you pay or you disappear. Somewhere deep inside, adrenaline flared. I backed away, my heel catching on the edge of the rug. No, I said. I'm done. For the first time, his smile vanished. The warmth drained from the room. No one says no, he replied calmly. I turned and ran. The hallway warped around me, reflections blurring, duplicating, mocking me. My limbs felt like lead, every step a fight. I realized then, the oil, the drinks, they weren't hospitality. They were restraints. I crashed through a side door, stumbling into a dark service corridor. My hands brushed against a stack of old linens. Desperate, I wrapped them around my palms, trying to block whatever was seeping into my skin. Behind me, footsteps echoed, unhurried. He wasn't chasing. He didn't need to. By the time I reached the front entrance, my vision was tunneling. I collapsed against the door, fingers inches from freedom. Diddy knelt beside me, perfectly composed. Don't worry, he whispered. You were special the moment you walked in. My consciousness faded as his words followed me into the dark. Your essence was always mine. I woke up in a hospital. They said I'd been found unconscious in an alley, dehydrated, confused. No signs of foul play. No mansion, no party, no records. No one believed me. Weeks later, I saw the headline. Another white party, another rising star. And late at night, when everything is quiet, my hands still tingle. Like something is missing. Like something is calling me back. Before she could answer, She was pulled away by a man dressed in white. "Cam," Diddy said, appearing beside me again, his smile sharp as a knife. "Come with me." He led me upstairs into a room lined with mirrors. In the center stood a long white table. On it sat a sleek, glowing device, beside a small vial filled with swirling golden liquid. "This," he said, lifting the vial, "is your essence. Your soul." I stared at it, my stomach twisting. "What do you mean, my soul?" He leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper. "It's what makes you you. Your energy. Your light. And when I take it, I become more." His smile widened. "The ultimate freak." The realization hit me like a slap. This wasn't just a party. This was a ritual. A transaction. And I was the offering. My legs felt weak, my head heavy, but adrenaline forced me forward. "No," I whispered. "I'm not doing this." His smile vanished, replaced by cold fury. "No one says no to me." I bolted out of the room, my breath ragged, my heart pounding. Behind me, Diddy's voice echoed through the mansion. "Find him. Bring him back." The chase was a nightmare. Blurred hallways, multiplying reflections, doors that led nowhere. My body felt heavy, my movement slow. That's when I realized the baby oil wasn't just moisturizer. It was a weapon, something designed to shut my system down. I stumbled into a storage room, grabbing an old tarp and wrapping it around my hands to block any further absorption. But I knew it was already too late. Diddy was hunting me. And in this house, he controlled everything. When I finally collapsed at the front door, unable to escape, he knelt beside me. His triumph was complete. "Your essence is already mine," he whispered. I woke up in a hospital bed, my mind spinning. A nurse told me I'd been found unconscious in an abandoned alley. No one believed me when I tried to explain what had happened. No one even knew about the white party. Weeks later, I saw the headlines. Another white party. Another rising star pulled from obscurity. And I knew the truth. Diddy's voice still haunts me. His words a chilling reminder. Your essence is already mine. And somehow I know he's not done. Not with me.